Well, yeah, yeah. So I said, I will pass it on.
So when did you send that email?
I know.
Last week,
Huh?
we just had a construction, and at the end of the day, they pick out their shirt and take themselves out to the kids. It's true. Really decent about it.
They didn't tell me to drop their drawers, so.
Right, oh yeah, you saw it in box. But nonetheless.
So,
Might not be here.
well, no, well,
Were we?
I guess we can, I know I was
6:18.
coming.
Yeah, she's coming.
6:18.
6:18.
I thought we were adjourning to 6.
Oh, the date, 6:18, not time.
We'll give about another minute and we'll
That's
start.
fine. You know she's coming though.
Yeah.
Why don't we? Let's just postpone it. Let's do it in August.
Amy doesn't want to do it.
Oh, look at Crystal's eyes rolled back up in her head. There she is with the pen. I'm gonna get T-shirts made like that with your picture on it. I'm gonna Photoshop it and have a pen sticking out of both eyes and say, yeah, meeting with Woody. Okay, Tony, you're wondering, I can tell. In certain meetings that I can't say what kind they were, but of course I say something inappropriately, and when Crystal's present in the meeting, she just takes the pen and stabs it in her eye,
That's the side.
That's the sign.
just to kind of give me a subtle message that maybe I shouldn't say things like that. Just subtle.
For Woody, it's always not so subtle.
Hey, you know, George Carlin was my hero.
Well, we don't have to read between the lines with you.
Oh, no, you don't. No. Good thing I wear a shirt so I have sleeves. 6 oh man, I'm way past it. I can't find it. I must have deleted it. I'll just send it.
Good afternoon. Welcome to our special council meeting.
I know that same thing.
If you'll please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay.
Good thing you didn't ask me to say the prayer, because I was just going to say, God help us.
Melanie, roll call.
Roll call. Councilmember Bullen.
Here.
Councilmember Colleton.
Here.
Councilmember Lang. Here. Councilmember Lassonde.
Here.
And Mayor Crowder.
Here. Okay, item 2, public hearing. Conduct a duly noticed and published public hearing and receive a report on the town's vacancies and recruitment and retention efforts. Crystal?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. I am here before you today to help us conduct the AB 2651 public hearing regarding job vacancies and recruitment and retention efforts. Quickly, we will review the agenda. Thank you. So we're just going to talk about the background, how this came about, what the requirements are of this new law, and we'll talk specifically about our current vacancies and about our attraction and retention efforts, and then talk about any challenges and recommendations that we might see as a result of all of this information. All right, so the background is last year, the governor signed a new law, AB 2561, to amend the Myers-Milius-Brown Act that creates a new obligation for public agencies to address the status of their vacancies. And this came about as a result of some agencies in the state having ongoing vacancies that really impacted public services and the employees working in those agencies. So this is the first year that it's in effect, went into effect January 1. And so that's why we're here. So the requirements of this new law is that you have to have a public hearing at least once prior to the adoption of an annual budget. And so very timely that we're doing this today. We're going to present the status of each vacancy that we have and what the recruitment and retention efforts have been. And yes, again, identifying any obstacles that there may be. So as part of this, we also have to invite and notice the employee bargaining units if they are interested in speaking on this matter. So we did that. We notified each of the units, and none have said that they wanted to speak specifically today. And that's probably because our vacancy rate for the most part is very good at the moment. So let's see here. Our current vacancies for this fiscal year, out of 103 budgeted positions, we currently have 2 vacancies. And so overall, that's a 2% vacancy rate, which is considered very, very good. However, one of these groups you'll notice, our police management and mid-management group has a 33% vacancy rate, and that's because it's a very small group. So there's 3 positions total, and one of them is currently open. So now we'll talk about the status of these current vacancies. So we have an accounting assistant position that was newly approved by council over the course of this last fiscal year in April of this year. The position was posted, interviews were completed, and we have a highly qualified top candidate identified, and they are in the last stage of the background process. The second position is the police services lieutenant, and this came about from a retirement. We had a retirement in February of this year, and we had posted the position, and interviews were completed and decisions were made. However, that process is still ongoing. And so the plan is that we will fill that position in this next fiscal year. All right, and so next we'll talk about attraction, things that we've done to try to entice people to give the town of Paradise employment a closer look. For public safety, we have new hire incentives in place. They're temporary, but they're in place for the next couple of years. Still, we have lateral police officer incentive of $40,000 and a lateral public safety dispatcher incentive of $10,000. We also have a referral bonus for our current employees if they identify and speak to a candidate who ends up getting hired. We have a small referral bonus for those employees who refer people. Our typical process is just posting vacancies on the town's website and any virtual boards or industry-specific sites that are targeted to the job openings that we have. And then social media. We use the town's social media, LinkedIn and Facebook and the things you would expect. So for retention, we actually are always working on this. As you might recall, we had a year, the year 2019, where we had 40% turnover, and we've been sort of clawing back to having our positions filled. And so a lot of work has been done towards retention. Recently, we just addressed the medical premium share that had gotten a little out of balance over the years. And that was the #1 issue that our employees raised, and the council and the units came to an agreement that will help with retention. And then we have 3-year contracts in place that include cost of living adjustments. And so that kind of stability also will lend itself to not only attraction, but also retention. And then we do have an emphasis on training and development, and there's promotional opportunities. In fact, a lot of our recruitment is due to promotional opportunities when people move or retire there's opportunities within. And so that's very exciting. And then we also made an adjustment to the sergeant, lieutenant, and chief salary ranges to address the market issues that are inevitably out there, and specifically in our area. So next, we'll talk about some of the challenges identified. So we're going to continue to see our neighbors and competitors as it relates to employment, offering higher pay and incentives. In fact, I just saw an advertisement for City of Chico, lateral dispatcher, big dollars. And then we have this lingering issue on PERS retirement for our public safety officers. So circa 2013, we made changes to our pension program. And then when PEPRA, the new pension reform, came in, they memorialized those reduced benefits, and there's no going back. And so classic members, people who are in public safety elsewhere, who would want to make a move here, they would come in at a lower level pension program. So that's part of what we have to sort of offset in our practices and processes and packages. So the recommendation to address some of these challenges is to continue to monitor the market and perhaps plan for a salary and benefits survey prior to the next round of negotiations so that we have all that information, and then to revisit the public safety recruitment incentives prior to their expiration. We've been doing that sort of continually since they were put in place. And then just do our best to maintain a positive work environment and a reputation as a great place to work. And just wanted to say that one of the things that I hear most often in interviews is how people have heard good things about working for the town of Paradise, and that they're really excited to join and help rebuild the community. And so with that, it's a public hearing, so I will turn it back over. Any questions?
Questions
Comments?
for Crystal?
I had one question. So PEPRA employees coming here, they would face that wherever they went. They wouldn't be reclassified outside of the PEPRA structure elsewhere, correct?
So it depends on what the agency had in place at the time. So so we added a second tier in 2013.
Okay.
So we actually have 3 tiers, and our third tier, our PEPRA tier, is lower than some of our neighbors.
Okay. That's very interesting.
Yes, yes, and so it was something that the town was very proactive, seeing that the costs were increasing, and implemented a second tier, but then the statewide reform overlaid it, and now we have that in place.
Any other questions for Crystal? Okay, so 3:13, we'll open the public comment. Melanie, any cards?
I have no cards on this item.
Okay, 3:13, we'll close the public meeting.
Thank you.
Do I hear a motion?
Who moved? Motion by Bolin, seconded by Colleton. Councilmember Bolin? Councilmember Colleton? Councilmember Lang?
Aye.
Councilmember Lasan?
Aye.
And Mayor Crowder?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Item 3A, presentation and review of the 25-26 budget. Amy?
Good midday, Council. As I said, this is going to be the most exciting presentation ever. I hope you're ready for this. So congratulations, our budget is being put out before you. There's lots of interesting and amazing things that all of our group is doing. The way we present our budget is a zero-based budgeting, so that means all the line items are built pancaked on top of each other to give you the numbers. It's not just a fail swoop across. Each department has worked with the finance department in building their unique budgets. I was going to say next, Mark, but I have the thing. So today we're going to look at our funding overview with long-term recovery model, our general fund, our Measure V, department budgets. So they'll each come up and describe what their year is going to look like. And then we're going to talk about our other funds, and there's lots of them, personnel, as well as our successor agency. So I wanted to give us a little bit of perspective of what we have done in the past few years, almost 10 years. And to give you an idea, so in 2017, the overall budget, all funds, was $23.5 million. We had 86 and a quarter FTE, and our population was 26,000. And as you see in this slide, 2018 was 28 million, 2019 went down to 23, 2020 was 27 million, 2021 was 41 million, and there's a little caveat in 21 through 23 because we started doing a lot more capital projects, and so there was a lot of transfers. So in some senses, when I just pull the raw data, it makes it maybe a little bit bigger than what it truly was. All the expenses were accurate, but it's just the transfers shows a bigger increase. So in 21, we're looking at 41 million, 22, 55 million, 23 is 87 million. A lot of that has to do with transfers. 24 million, we reduced the amount of transfers, but it's 60 million. And then currently, and we're not done with the year yet, we're at 64 million. If you remember last year's budget, we were around $120 million. A lot of that has to do with capital projects and what we hope to accomplish because we want to have it in place. But then things don't always happen, as you see, with all the changes and, contracts aren't awarded in time and all the different things. So we're so far at 64 million. That is going to change. And with that, this year, we're looking at $134 million. The real interesting thing is when you start to look at the FTE and the amount of people who are making all these things happen. So in 2017, we were looking at 86 people, and then it nosedived, as we would expect. And then you can see Crystal's been super busy on getting that ratcheted back up so we can make all of these things happen. And if you look at the population, you'll see how that is also ratcheting up with all the work that we've been doing. And it looks like we've been pretty successful with that growth because we were at 400 or 4,200 and now we're over 11,000. And that was from January of this year from the Department of Finance. So I just want to take a moment because Jim and I, we're late to the party, but all the directors that are here are literally the people who have been making this happen and beating the bushes and rattling the cages trying to find the money in order to have a $134 million budget. I'm just painting the picture, but they're the ones, finding the paint and doing all the hard work. So like on here, monetary data is in millions for the actuals. 22 to 24 contain transfers that inflate some of those numbers, and the annual budget escalation is tied to capital projects. So this isn't all general fund, this is everything put in one big basket. So the long-range fiscal sustainability, we're looking at 6% growth year over year from the original budget. That has to do, with the 4% COLAs and those things that we've all been actively involved in. This is hot off the press, like an hour or two ago. So this is what we're looking at for population and housing trends. So you'll see the nosedive, and then you see us starting to tick back up. So in 2054, we're looking at approximately 22,000 for population, and the housing units is 11,000. This has been model 4 or option 4 in the sustainability model, and it's been trending right on target. So that was the mid-range. So we're not high end, but we're definitely not low. We're right smack dab in the middle of what we've been looking at. Also, here's the next slide. This one's really interesting. This is showing what the housing units are trending at. So the red is replacement units. The yellow is new units, which I think is very interesting. So we're planning teetering down around 39 for replacements, but then, what's going to really be our increase in our taxes is the new housing. So we just have to make sure that we're trending along with the new houses. So as we talked about before, we're currently in the recovery phase, and we're going to be going into the transition phase as we go further along with Mark's projects closing down, but the housing is going to keep on going. But when we're looking at this recovery phase, so if we have to be constantly managing our general fund expenditures, which is on the forefront of all of our minds. How are we going to be able to keep in line with our actual property taxes and our general revenues? And then we're going to go into the transitional phase. And as we develop the levels off the projects and we're coming to completion, our target expenditures will need to slow down in order to conserve the pro funds. And if we can do that based off the model, we'll still be able to get to 53. But that is not a guarantee, and that is active participation in making conscious choices. And then after we're in that transition phase, it's the stabilization phase, which is where expenditure growth coincides with actual taxes.
Amy, before you go on, can you go back to the previous slide? Okay, so when you talked about this hot off the press, so the red bars graph is people that are returning, rebuilt homes
Replacements.
in Boston Pride. And the yellow are new homes. Okay, but we were pre-fire, were pretty much as a community built out. So that just means that the yellow bars represent people that used to live here, the house burnt down, they moved away, they sold their lot, somebody bought it and built a new house.
That's how I understand it.
Yeah, okay.
So if we look at where we were pre-fire, it's not pre-fire. It's not pre-fire. And it's like what you guys had said, not everybody is going to be replacing everything. There's people absorbing more lots. So it's conservative in the fact that it's not saying you're going to be what you were. It's not saying that at all.
And it's the different assessment rate applied to.
No, I understand all of that. The way the graph was presented, it just sounds like suddenly, we're an 18 square mile community, that's all we have on this ridge. And pre-fire, we were pretty well built out, like Susan had said earlier, we built like 3 houses a year or something. It's not like our geography is any bigger. It's just that people that didn't come back sold their lots, new people bought it, and I understand all the assessment time.
Sure.
But it's just, we're still on 18 square miles, there's still only so much dirt.
Sure. And I think it's good. That's a great point, and I think that it correlates with this because we're, if we were saying we had 15,000 new units, I think we would call BS on the whole thing, right? We're not saying that.
I'm having a hard time with new units starting later than now because I see people moving into houses that came up here from the Bay Area and if that's a contractor built it under speculation, that's not considered a new house now. That's considered a replacement.
I can get more information on this for you, what that entails.
That's what I was thinking, yeah, because there's a lot of, 40 or 50% of the people lately have been folks that didn't live here before fire.
Sure.
So wouldn't that be new houses? I'm seeing the yellow starting 2 years from now.
I would think you'd be looking at housing units, and we're getting a multifamily units, and it's like next year we're looking at 190 brand new, never seen before multifamily units.
So for this, they worked with these two lovely people here.
Right, so our department had worked with Amy's consultant, and really the numbers that we were looking at, there's a lot of ADUs, accessory dwelling units, that didn't exist before, that truly are brand new, and so many new multifamily units, and those are counted as new dwelling units. They can be attached, right? It's very popular currently also to do this new duplex setup where they're both 1,000, one acts as a primary, one acts as an ADU. So we actually have hundreds of new units that weren't there before because we're just seeing a higher density.
Yeah, I'm just seeing year 25, no yellow,
I also wanted to clarify, so the percentage on that graphic of 53%, so we're 53% rebuilt as far as just total structures.
Replacement units.
I would
And-
assume so.
And the
we
reason
can
I ask
confirm.
is looking at the population percentage coming back at well below 50%, but this saying over 50%.
The way that I'm reading this is that the 50% would be how, like, we replaced 50% of the housing units, but
Okay,
totally
not-
different statistic than population.
And I might mention, the way I read this is it's 53% replacement unit versus someone coming in and buying, like you were saying, Woody, someone coming in and buying a unit. So people rebuilding versus new coming in.
Right.
That statistic is closer to that
I
statistic
could believe
I've
that,
seen.
though. The consultants did not want to know what was being rebuilt. They truly wanted to know what was not there before. And we were giving them those numbers.
As in net vacant.
See,
Correct. No, not necessarily vacant. It could just be additional houses on a property that only had one before. So if now they're building a second or third or,
I think we need
Right,
to
so
clarify
we've-
that data.
right, we have a couple hundred extra now in multifamily units that we didn't have before. And more slated.
Yeah, because Cypress had a care home on it and one house, and now there's 107, 140 units, well, there'll be 70 right now.
If we at some point could just get clarification on all of that from the consultants, so we have a source for that, that would be very helpful.
So you want clarification on the numbers of units?
Like, what is 53% what? Because we have a couple of different ideas here of what that represents. And then Ron's question, too.
I just questioned the bar, because you say you got 3,421 new units, but I don't see any new units. And maybe I'm not looking close enough, but I don't see the new units showing up until 26. So I lost track of new units until I saw the number.
We'll get clarification on this because what's critical again about this graph is showing us what our potential assessed valuation is going forward. So we'll make sure they clarify all that.
Wonderful questions. Let's see. So, that being said, at our current spending rate, the projection is 2040 is when we would run out of our pro funds, based off all the things that have just currently happened. And that's with no augmentation of ratcheting back. However, if we do start that transitional phase, we do start ratcheting back. We still, once the growth phase is done and we're, wrapping up a lot of those projects, the potential for 53 is out there based on some big changes, but based off changes. So I know it's kind of like pie in the sky. That's a huge range, and it really truly is. But the possibilities are out there, depending on the choices that we make and the choices that you guys make on what we're doing moving forward.
That also would not include, those projections would not include any future negotiated salary or benefit increases, correct?
I would have to look at the rate that they used. In the prior model, they used a 2.5% COLA. So I would have to go back and check to see what the COLA would be moving forward. But they always
Okay.
project a COLA in these items.
And so do you have a guesstimate of when the transition phase starts and completes,
That's up
that
to
we can
us.
maintain that 2053 date?
2029.
Okay.
So isn't it my understanding that a lot of, like, we're at 100+ employees? And, which is, a lot of projects we have are all of these grant funds and some of these major big road things and different stuff, and which took extra people. The building that we're doing 300 houses a year takes a whole bigger staff. As that dwindles, as those, some of the federal dollars or federal bigger projects that are funded from outside money complete, those staffing levels will probably come down. Is that not correct?
That is an assumption you can make, yes. So if we look, which is why I put the stats here to start with. So if you look at what we were pre-fire and what kind of budgets we were working with,
Yeah.
and the FTEs. So that assumption is out there. It's possible.
Okay, but wait, if you're gonna take a 2017, $23 million budgetary number, and then look at 2026, $134 million, a whole bunch of that is from grants from these big projects.
Absolutely.
That also account for this increase in staff and a lot of different things that are as a result of that. As those things complete.
I would think you're correct. I'm not disagreeing with
Okay,
you. I
I'm
think
just-
that is,
that's
I think
where-
that is a viable
that's where that-
assumption.
That's where that transitional phase comes.
Correct. I think that's a viable assumption. A lot of people are being funded out of other grants as we go along. A lot of time, with this budget, we took the assumption, people are being charged to general fund, but as we progress through the year, they're actually moving based off their timesheets into the projects. So there is going to be some flexibility in the wages that you see in the budget today. But overall,
Right.
changes are going to be made. It's up to you to decide how these changes are going to be made. We're not going to be functioning at a $134 million budget in 5 years unless Mark rattles a whole bunch more cages. Or Colette with her housing. I mean, the world is our oyster at this point, but let's be real, things are going to dry up in a few years. We're not going to possibly need the same staffing levels. But your first responders and all of those people are a fixture.
Yeah.
Those are-
And
yeah,
so
those
there's
are-
some things that aren't going to change, and then there's other things that will change.
And don't lose sight of scale, because if you look at where we were in 2018 pre-fire, we're only talking about approximately 12 and a half positions today above where we were then. And yet,
FTEs, not
FT well,
necessarily positions.
correct, but we're talking about full-time equivalent positions. But point being is that we're spending several times over the amount of money to manage the town's recovery, and our personnel growth over that amount of time has been 12 and a half positions. And those are going to come down, to Woody's point.
And this may not be the time for this, but I'd sure like to see a complete list of the consultants we've got working on different things, because I can't keep track of them, and I'm hearing, so I'd sure like to see that so we can kind of see where we're at there.
Is that a line item in this budget, like we're all, no matter what department, what we're spending on consultants? Because I'd like to see that.
So in general fund, you'll see that under a 5213 account code. Those are all consultants, those are professional services. On the other funds, though, it's because it's rolled up. I would have to look at it closely, but I believe you might be able to tell in there as well, because but it is rolled up. It's just not under that 5213 number. If you look at the other fund summary, you'll see it under a 50, I believe. So it would be under services. So, for example, if we looked at Fund 2325 in your actual budget, and you looked at, no, it's in the actual budget itself. If you looked at 050, that would be services, so that you could see how much the consultants in these other funds are. But predominantly, you're going to find most of those consulting fees in your other funds, not so much in general fund. That's where they all house. I mean, if you think about the sewer project, or you think about all these projects for engineering, prepping and doing all the reports.
What is that? Services professional and contract services?
Yep, exactly.
So in each department, there's a line item for that.
Yep. Mhm.
Because I'm looking on that zero.
Some of them have. Yep. Absolutely. So it's all spelled out in the different areas of services.
So when we adopt this budget, a department has $50,000 or $100,000 budgeted for services, they can just spend that.
It's zero-based budgeting in regards to, these are actual contracts that we have existing. So say you have, well, some of them, yeah. So auditors, auditor, we have to have auditing. But that falls under that category. So to just say, you know, they're all, it's not. We're looking at what services we actually need in order to implement the items that we've been told to execute, and those are the contracts or the estimated amount of the contract that we anticipate it to be.
Okay, but if I look at this, if I look at a department and it has that line item, I won't know what that is. I'll just have to trust that stuff. that
I can
required.
run the transaction report for you, and you can see all the contracts. But I can do that for you if that's what you
I knew
needed.
you could, 'cause you told us.
I think, Woody, and I think to Steve's request for a list of consultants, then you could kind of cross-reference those two to their respective departments.
That also includes some of your contracts for, say, Journix, which is our timekeeping, or, you know, the contracts that we have for the website, or different things like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Includes consultants.
Yep, absolutely. So should there be any of those items that you actually want to see what it makes up for those items, we'll be more than happy to give those to you. Before, if you recall, your budget document was 400 plus pages, and
Now it's 398.
yes. So we're trying to make it digestible for you, but should you want to open up the book and look, absolutely, we will provide any of that information for you. Okay, so if we look at 23-24, the general fund, operating revenues were 9.4 million. Measure V came in at 1.3 million, and then the input from the pro funds was $7.8 million. That gave us a total revenue with transfers of 605,000. Total revenue of 19 million. We spent just under 19 million, so we had a net income of 143. Really, it's all pro funds, so it was just the extra that got transferred over. If you look at 24-25 amended budget, we're looking at 8.1 million for general revenues, 1.4 for Measure V revenues, and then a transfer in from pro funds of 13.9 million, and then other transfers to cover other funds such as animal control of 353,000. So we're looking at 23,179,000. And then we're looking at the same for financial uses for the expenditures, because we're not making a profit or anything like that, or extra funding, because it's a transfer in from the pro funds. Year to date, so we ran these reports beginning of June. We are trending pretty dang close to budget. And we still have a month or two to go. You know, the end of the year stragglers, a lot of consulting, construction for CIP, different things like that, but CIP is not going to hit general fund. We are looking at an approximate transfer from our pro funds of 11.7 million, which is under what we had originally projected. But again, we're not at the end of the year, so we could still hit those original marks. When we look at 25-26, we are being conservative in a lot of our revenues, but we're looking at the property taxes that the county gave us for 24-25 that was produced in November, and we should anticipate an increase, but we want to be conservative. I don't want to promise the world and take it back. So we're looking at the property taxes that they budgeted for in November of 24. And then we're looking at the new revenues for sales tax and Measure V that we have an outside source give us those numbers. So they look at the state and all the different items and how things are trending. And we're looking at Measure V being at 1.3 million, which is actually a downturn. And when you go, well, why are we making less? Well, people aren't spending as much, and we're seeing that across the state, not just in Butte County, but Butte County is getting hit kind of hard. And the different changes, and people say, oh, what about Amazon? Well, you have distribution points, and you have all these different ways to slice the pie, right? And they are doing that with Amazon and online ordering as well. So with all that being said, we're looking at a contribution from pro funds at 13.9 million, almost 14. We're also doing transfers to other funds, such as animal control, because our assessment doesn't quite cover all of the things that go into animal control. And that has nothing to do with the building. Well, it does with, the utilities and things, but not building the building. So again, that's a net zero for the income because there's a transfer in. Any questions so far? No? Okay. So now we're looking at the reserves. This is going to be interesting. I wanted to give you different perspectives. I don't want to promise the world. I want to be transparent with different ways to look at it. So when we were looking at 23-24, non-spendable, so you have a percentage, I believe it's 16%, that's non-spendable of what your expenses are for the year. And it all equates into your ending fund balance. So when we look at our general fund, it's about 5.3 million when you put the non-spendable, the assigned property abatement, the cash flow, Measure V in general fund. That's the 10-10 fund. But then when you look at the pro fund, you'll see it's 153 million. And then you see the 21.9, and then you also see another 21.9. And if you recall, you asked us to set aside 10 and 10% in these recovery and non-spendable at the end, for the reserve. So you'll see the total there, 202. Now, if we look at 24-25 budget, we anticipated to end at 189. You look at the next one over, and this is where you should get a little bit tickled because this is good news. So you'll see that there's a negative on the top for 6.8 million, and that's because we haven't closed the year. This is just year to date. So general fund without the contribution, 6.8. But the really fantastic line, if we look at it, is the assigned pro fund. And you'll notice that we anticipated being at 141 million. We're at 161 million. Part of that has to do with we haven't done the transfer yet, which we are projecting to be around 11, almost 12 million based off actuals. But the other part has to do with our interest earned and our market value change. So we've had a gangbuster year. We have made millions on improvement on the actual market value of our stocks and bonds. And if I recall, and Heidi, you weren't here when this happened, but we were negative 13 million when I first came in, under what the actual value was. Now we're a positive. So that's huge. And so that's nothing that I've done. It's just the environment that we're in with the market, and it's been fantastic for us. And the other great thing that we have with our bonds right now is that when they were bought, it was a really crummy time to make anything. And so there's a 5-year period of turnaround for our investments. We are now at the 5-year time. Yeah, exactly. And so we're able to invest at a much higher rate. And it has benefited us tremendously. So if you look at 25-26, those numbers are actual numbers. But you notice I put some asterisks there. So if we went off of what we anticipated to end with on our budget for 24-25, our general fund combined total would be 179.7 million. But when we take into consideration where we are as of June, we're actually looking at 188 million, which is good news. But I don't want to say we're going to be here because a budget is only as good as the second that you put the numbers in. But it looks like we're trending at the 188, which is great news. Questions on this? Because I know this is probably clear as mud. No? I told you this is a riveting and exciting presentation today. Thank you. Thank you very much. So here is your general fund revenues over the years and what they're made up of. So if you look at 2017, 18, 19, you're looking at pro transfers, you're looking at insurance proceeds, state backfill. That gray disappeared. No more state backfill. So now we're just, working under our own devices here, which is pro funds, general revenue, and Measure V. And that's what it looks like today. What are driving the expenditures in the budget? Unfunded liability, We know that's Woody's favorite word, or 2 words. PERS increases, so they give us a worksheet at the beginning of the year, and it was 2.4 million last year. This year it went up to 2.7 million. We are looking at changes in our liability insurance, so not health care, but just liability. And, you know, insurance is fun times. We're looking at the COLA of 4%. We're also looking at the 80-20 split for the new employee, well, for employee insurance. And the fire contract, as you guys just approved, I believe at our last meeting, the fire contract was a large increase and will continue to be. So now we're going to go, yes, ma'am.
I had one question, 2 slides back on the general fund revenues.
Yes.
So just to make sure I have my yellows correct, we are still more than half of the pro transfer?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
okay.
So if you can sell more houses, get more people. We're doing our best. Okay. So you want to see what makes up our general fund? 30% or 36% is police, 27% is fire, administrative services is 12, community development is 7, public works is 6. A lot of public works is in other funds. Recovery and economic development, 5%. Measure V, 3%. Remember, we didn't spend the whole amount because we were backfilling for the fire truck from before. Finance, those guys, 3%. Clerk is 1%. Town council is 1%. Now that's relative 1% because of the overall amount. I know it's the same percentage and much higher number. And then non-departmental activities and successor agency, 0.3% and 0.1%. You'll say, why is successor agency in there? With us with a successor agency defaulting on their loan, there are expenses in there that are not allowable, but we still have to have all the disclosures. So Measure V, budget. We are I assume we're pretty familiar with the actual statistics in there. So projected ending fund balance is $164,000. That's because we spent it down for the fire truck in 24-25. Yes.
I'm just amazed that almost 2/3 of our budget is house and fire.
That is your priority.
And it is, and you can't cut that. So,
No.
I mean, we're talking about reducing, you know, hit the trend line to get out to 2053. Those can't be touched.
We all have the same feelings that you have right now. Mm-hmm.
That's it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that'll never change. That's right.
And that exceeds,
That's a small number.
so that exceeds our revenue as well, without the pro funds. Mhm. But you still have the same square footage, acreage, as before the fire. And that is the struggle that we all face. You know, how do you provide the services for the same space as before? Obviously, the space has changed, but it's still the same size.
Well, I think our revenues.
Councilmember Lasson, could you turn on your mic?
I believe
Thank
our
you.
revenue, at least I heard it before, that we're now bringing in as far as taxes are concerned, is what it was pre-fire. It's just inflation has raised our costs up some. Is that correct?
I would assume that is very accurate.
Okay. Yeah.
Because your property tax doesn't change that much year over year,
Yes.
but your bread cost sure does.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we look at our projected revenue, it's 1.3 million, and like I said, we had you had voted to pre-purchase that fire truck, so we did that in the prior year with the caveat that we would reduce the amount of expenses in the next going year. So you'll see that here at $724,000, which gives us a new ending fund balance of $770 for Measure V. What are we spending it on? Just the people that you just spoke about, predominantly, which is the intent of Measure V. So fire department, there's a $250,000 contribution for the fire contract, For PD, we have $339,000, which is a K9 Tahoe, a CSO transport, which is for people going down to Chico and transporting the people in back. The ones they don't want to sit in the front. A truck conversion so that they can better utilize one of the vehicles they have. Post-training, operational support, and training for cadets and things. Animal control is ratcheted back down at $55,000. And then Public Works, they have a truck. Now the super exciting people. Finance. Also legal and human resources. So town council, you guys have your medical in there, your travel expenses, and the stipend that comes with the position. Town clerk, they're working with, the contracts to support all the activities. The town manager, he supports all the daily activities with different directors and the different divisions. IT, they're predominantly wages as well as upgrades to town hall and departments. Legal, it's that monthly legal retainer. Human resources is wages and employee development and recruitment. Finance, we have an addition for those 2 positions that you approved, and employee development, since we have a lot of new staff in there, and financial consulting contracts. Now we're going to go to the boring part of our presentation, the departments. Actually, they're the most exciting part.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. It's my pleasure to discuss the budget items that we have coming into this fiscal year for the Recovery and Economic Development Department. So this is a very high-level, brief overview. Of course, all of the detail and all of the monetary amounts are in the actual budget, and of course, available for any questions you may have at any point. So some of the big items that we have coming into this year, of course, is Phase 2, which is the removal phase of the Category 4 tree removal program. As you know, we finally were able to get underway with this phase just a few weeks ago, and we have removed hundreds of trees so far. We do expect this program to wrap up significantly in about September of this year. So we're very proud of that. This has taken a very long time and a tremendous amount of work to get this underway. So we're very proud of that. But that will be completed in this upcoming fiscal year. Also, the Residential Ignition Resistant Rehab Program, so another FEMA hazard mitigation program grant that we are working on, that is also underway, where we are hardening homes that survived the Camp Fire and providing them with resilient technologies to help them survive any future disasters. So that is underway as well, and we have about 11 homes that have actually been complete so far through that program, which is fantastic. We also continue to work on the fuels reduction program that has been ongoing since last year. We'll continue that into this year. And then for economic development, we are beginning Phase 3 of our downtown plan, as you are aware. We are beginning that work just starting this week with our working group, and look forward to that plan that will come out with some really good strategies for revitalizing our downtown area. We also are giving some support to the Rebuild Paradise Foundation to continue their advocacy for insurance specifically. We are also working on the healthcare study. So we are coming up with a complete draft to go over different strategies to really improve the healthcare here in the community, to outline what we currently have and some concrete steps to improve that in the future. So we will be presenting that to the community after we go through some steps, and that is presented to council later this fiscal year. We also have the utility box mural project that we have been hard at work on. This is our first year with that project, so we have, of course, run into some challenges in getting that up and running, but we are very excited to be working with some very talented artists and should have that installation happening in the next few months. Of course, we continue our ongoing advocacy, which is extremely important in the recovery environment, not only for ourselves, but for other disaster-impacted communities. We are instituting EOC software that will streamline our EOC processes, and we are in the process of instituting that. We also are going into year 3 of our TOT Community Reinvestment Program. We'll be talking about that a little bit more over the next year and where we go from here. But this is the third year of that program in which we reinvest the TOT funds, or part of the TOT funds that we receive, back into community groups to help improve tourism. And then finally, we held our first BizPro Academy just a few weeks ago, and we will be continuing that program into this fiscal year and holding an additional academy to train more resources and volunteers for our business community to help them start businesses here in Paradise. So that is a very brief overview of some of the projects that we have going into this fiscal year. Thank you.
Colette, can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
Can you give me a little more detail about the support we're offering the Rebuild Paradise Foundation?
Sure. So Rebuild Paradise Foundation, as you know, has been foundational in our recovery since the very beginning. They have recently been interested in looking for additional funding sources to continue some of that work. And part of our efforts for advocacy, especially for insurance, as that is a major barrier to people, as you well know, coming here and living here, they are doing some fantastic work in that area. And so we felt that it was an appropriate use of funds to support part of that effort that they are undergoing.
Let me be more specific. How much money are we giving them?
Yes, $25,000 is what we have included in the budget.
Are we doing anything to the town to like get insurance companies? I heard there's a second one, right, insurance now. Are we doing anything directly, or are we just using other people?
So that's a great question. So we work continuously with the Department of Insurance and the Insurance Commissioner. We have provided quite a bit of direct input on the initiatives that he has put forward over the last year and beyond. So we're in close contact with them. Really, our efforts are on the advocacy level, and we have supported the efforts that have really been spearheaded by the Rebuild Paradise Foundation when it comes to bringing the insurance companies here to Paradise and touring them around, showing them the efforts that we have been undertaking as well.
Are we reaching out to any insurance companies?
We are working with Rebuild Paradise
So
Foundation
we're
to
not,
do that.
we are
Not directly, no.
Directly. Why not?
That is not something that we've done at this point.
I mean, working with the Department of Insurance that's part of the problem, is the Department of Insurance. From the insurance industry side of the street. So,
I think one thing that's important to clarify is that we always have a choice, right? Do we staff up to do things ourselves, or do we partner with somebody who's doing a really good job? And that's where the idea of supporting Rebuild Paradise Foundation in this narrow particular area, that's why it's been recommended to you to include in the budget.
that's making an assumption you have to staff up to write a letter on town letterhead and have somebody send a letter to Allstate, State Farm, whoever. I mean,
Yeah, again, to be clear, the effort that went into bringing Mercury Insurance to Paradise was more than writing a letter, and so. And again, keep in mind, these are staff recommendations to you. The ultimate choices are still yours.
Measurable outcomes of those efforts, though, are limited.
Well, we did get Mercury up here. We partnered with them, and they are writing 250,
Up to, and you have to go through the Rebuild Paradise organization to be considered.
We have had people go directly to Mercury and get insurance from them. My neighbor across the street just did that. They didn't go to Rebuild Paradise.
If I may, this budget allocation would be contingent upon an agreement that we have with Rebuild Paradise Foundation that we'll be entering into come the beginning of the new fiscal year that does require some measurable outcomes, such as new insurance companies coming to Paradise, writing in Paradise, and some other measurable outcomes.
Okay,
that is
so
something
we
that
will
are
see
looking
that
at.
agreement.
Yes, that is correct. That will be coming back to council.
Okay.
This is just to
So getting
provide an
it
area
on
in
the line
budget.
item is not necessarily writing a check to them. We will see the
Correct.
agreement prior to that.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Next.
so how much are bullets today?
I don't know. I don't get to go to the range often anymore.
You guys load me on?
Good afternoon. So as you can see, that picture was a few months back, probably about 7-8 months ago. We are getting staffed up, but fully staffed in animal control, hired our last dispatcher, and we are fully staffed on the sworn personnel level, just dealing with some folks that are off the schedule right now. So it just seems to be one of those imbalances that haunts us. Go ahead and move forward. So our goals for this next fiscal year, we want to maintain our staffing levels and continue to provide the service that we do and that the community expects. We want to recruit and hire that lieutenant position that Crystal mentioned earlier, so we can close that 33% gap. And if any vacancies do come available, we plan to work quickly to backfill on the dispatch and officer level. We are excited, though. It's been a long time coming. We're going to be able to put a school resource officer over with the Paradise Unified School District. So that MOU has been updated recently. And so they'll be over, I believe, July 28th, so they can kind of get acquainted with the staff and start getting things rolling for the new school year. And then, as mentioned earlier, we are getting one new K-9 vehicle, and the current pickup that we're converting is going to go to the SRO position to be better utilized over there at the schools and then be available for the patrol functions. Next slide. As far as animal control goes, we're wrapping up the expansion and the remodel down there. So as mentioned before, we want to target that grand opening and showcasing this fall. So definitely want to give credit to the folks that have put a lot of effort into that, including PASH and Measure V supporting it, and of course you folks as well. And as I mentioned before, we are fully staffed down there. So a lot more square footage, and there's going to be a lot of work to be done down there. So they're excited to get moved in and working real hard to get all the furniture and everything set up. And I think I have one more. Nope. On to Jason. Do you guys have any questions for me? Okay. Thank you. And I do apologize. I have to leave for another meeting. So have a good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Before you, just again, a high-level overview of the fire department budget for 25-26. Biggest thing for me is to continue to provide the Paradise community with the highest level of fire and emergency services. So that's big from us. We're public servants, so providing that to the community is of utmost importance. Obviously, we talked about the 4-year cooperative agreement that was recently approved. That is one of the big factors of the increase in the budget this year. There was a total of 2 positions on this fiscal year, a captain and a firefighter 2. We're actively recruiting them now. I have 2 transfers on file. Both live in the town of Paradise, so I'm pretty excited about hopefully getting those folks up here. One just bought a house. He lives down the Bay Area, so trying to get him up here. He's excited to come on up. So, so we're in the process of recruiting those 2 folks now. Next slide, please. Obviously, Amy, that was 382, but 82s should be delivered this fall when it gets here. So part of the budget was to upfit that. So we had about $150,000 set aside to upfit that. We basically cut that in a third. We're asking for about $55,000 to put the hoses, tools, nozzles, all the equipment on that. That old engine 82 will then bump down to engine 281, become the town's reserve, which will be about 10 years old, which is great for a reserve engine. So current 281 is about 23 years old, so it's served the community well. They just start falling apart. The maintenance becomes more expensive. The juice isn't worth the squeeze. So excited to have that really updated fleet. And then when we have 382 in the next fiscal year, that'll really kind of modernize the whole fleet here for the town. We're also looking to upgrade the base radio at 82. They're running on an old Kenwood system, so we're looking to get them to a BK system that we have at 81 and the rest of the units in the county. And then our handhelds, which are these ones here, they're about $10,000 a piece. So we're looking to upgrade some of these new radios. We have about 15 in the fleet right now. They're tri-band radios, so they're UHF, VHF, and digital. So City of Chico runs digital frequencies. PD has encrypted, so it allows us to, if not communicate, at least hear for situational awareness exactly what's going on. The state has actually purchased some, yes. We're working on that, sir, yeah, absolutely. Hey, trust me, I try to find any opportunity to help out. So.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
So when 82, old 82, where does the reserve engine live?
At 81.
in Station 81?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. And so once 82 gets here, they upfit that, we'll bump 281 out, we'll surplus it and figure out, what the council's wishes are, donate it to the college, sell it, auction it off. whatever.
Once you upgrade the radios, will we be able to still, if I have a scanner at home, I can still listen to it?
With us, yes. Yeah, like the city of Chico, you can no longer hear, and most PD, you can't hear anymore because they're all encrypted. Yeah.
I mean, it's what saved my life on the fire.
Yeah,
Because
I don't envision, at least us locally, the state and the county locally going encrypted or anything like that. So it could happen at some point, officer safety is the big
Well,
part
I
of.
get that.
Yeah,
Because the bad guys were monitoring.
yes, yep.
Stuff. But when you were for fire, it's nice to know. And like I say, that I was able to hear at 7:13.
Yeah.
The fire was in town, I came home.
Yep.
Rescued my wife.
Yep. Yeah, I don't foresee that changing anytime soon, so. But that's a quick overview. If there's any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Did I hear right that juice ain't worth the squeeze? Is that right? I just want to make sure I heard that.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to write that down.
That's a good one. So, yeah, that one's free.
Thank you. Okay.
That's not included in our fire.
It's not, no, I didn't see that. That's why I wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Good afternoon, Council. Thank you for the time here to present the Public Works Fiscal Year 25-26 budget highlights between our three divisions, engineering, fleet, and maintenance. So first, when it comes to Public Works, and really the significant cost and the general fund impact is going to be development engineering. Position summary here for this function is we have one contract civil engineer through Bureau Veritas. That is a consultant that we use to augment staff that really helps us match the workload coming into the department at the BRIC and provide public development feedback as far as reviews, engineering site plans, and other applications that come through the BRIC. And so that's a key component, as well as our contract surveyor through North Star is also in this budget. They serve from the BRC, aiding in reviews for grading, drainage, circulation, and survey applications as well. When it comes to our fleet division, we have one fleet manager, one mechanic, and then new in the budget is proposed a part-time automotive technician. We're really excited about the opportunity for this part-time position. It could be a great opportunity for someone as a workforce development position to come in, learn the ropes, help guide, help partner with safety reviews and inspections, as well as learning the ropes and providing a great training opportunity for someone coming in to help the two hands there at the fleet department. They have 100 pieces of active vehicles between police, fire, public works, and community development. For street maintenance, a position summary here between our public works manager, supervisor, or maintenance workers. We have over 100 miles of roadways, drainages, and more. On the right here is just a little graphic we like to share at this time of year that shows all of the work that goes into maintaining the public right-of-way between your drainage, your roads, your signs, your tree hazards, your striping, pipes and infrastructure, as well as vegetation management. So a lot of work going in there. For our engineering division, our position summary includes 2 supervising capital project managers, 2 project managers, an assistant engineer, 2 construction inspectors, and an admin assistant. And amongst this team, we're managing 29 active projects across 18 funding sources at $67.7 million this fiscal year. Our budget forecast over the next 5 years includes $364 million, broken down here between 26-27 to 30-31, really averaging about $68.2 million, thereabouts over the first 3 years, 68, 79, and then 72 million. And then, as Amy brought up earlier, projects do start winding down as far as 46.9 million in 29-30, and then in 30-31, 30.6 million. I will note that our team has a great ability to secure additional grants, but then also with the team that we currently have, we're going to be able to rely less on consultants to broaden out the amount of work being developed, and what that will mean is more work being performed in-house, including securing additional grants for future projects. There's projects we're delivering this fiscal year that were not even on the horizon 3 years ago. So that effort will continue and be ongoing well beyond 2030. As far as some major project updates, just to give across the community here at the budget time, our progress in repaving the entire town of Paradise. One of the big cost factors going into the $134 million overall budget for this year includes the delivery of about 30 miles of paving in this fiscal year. At this moment in time, we've crossed the 50% threshold for the entire town. We've completed 46 miles. We are in progress on 27. This year, for 2026, the calendar year, I want to be clear on that. We're talking fiscal year, but then when we talk about paving, we're talking about calendar years. We have 15.3 miles for next year, and then future miles, 6.48, which we discussed last month, are mainly tied to leveraging existing capital projects such as road widening, whether that be Skyway between Billy and Wagstaff, Pearson between, Pence between Pearson and Skyway, and then Neal Road between Town Limits and Skyway. When it comes to the Paradise Sewer Project, we're in a period, finishing our period of transition, and really excited about the progress we've made in our alternatives analysis. We have 2 community town council meetings, special meetings coming up. Advertisement efforts are coming out here shortly. We just secured a venue at the Paradise Performing Arts Center. Looks like July 24th at 6 p.m. as well as August 14th at 6 p.m., where we'll be reviewing the work that's been completed over the last 5 months, including the efforts by the ad hoc committee for the Paradise Sewer Project, and the alternatives analysis that this committee has done, with a recommendation for the community to review, comment on, provide feedback, and then hopefully in August make a selection so we can get back to work on delivering this key project for recovery. Here on the left is just an overview of what future activities will look like. Depending on what's chosen, we'll have some environmental review, permitting, right-of-way, design, and then we'll get to the fun part of construction. As far as other capital projects that I haven't mentioned so far, our goals for this fiscal year is to advance the Pence Road widening project, advance the environmental review for both the Skyway project, widening between Billy and Wagstaff, as well as the work you've already seen start for the Row Road Phase 1 and 2 effort. Looking to advance the design of the Oliver Curve pathway. We made some choices on that over the last few months, and the design phase is fully funded, and so that work is underway. We're looking to advertise for construction our Skyway Pence traffic signal. That'll be really neat to have and improve safety at the top end of town. We're looking to kick off our CDBG DR MIT-RIP projects. That's our mitigation improvement, as well as resiliency improvement projects. MIT is mitigation. Sorry, I was looking for the acronym in there. But with that, there's 3 projects, and we do forecast now that we have secured the funds, bringing back those 3 projects in August to provide you an update about the budgets secured and the scope of work that we're looking to kick off. And so that'll come back likely in August for the council to review in the community. But amongst those, we have 3 efforts for the private road street name signs. Again, improving day-to-day public safety, informing the community which private roads are located where as you're moving about the streets, and then possibly with some resiliency efforts that could help designate a private road between a public road, but maybe even more importantly, a road that connects to somewhere versus one that is a dead end. Further, we're looking at evacuation message signs, as well as improving our storm drain resiliency. You'll note there's Phase 1 and Phase 2. At last time we brought these projects to council, that Phase 1 was submitted for about $5 million. We submitted Phase 2, which was the remainder of funding need for storm drain projects, including $20 million, as a leftover application that we put forward to the program. And we're excited to share informally at this point. We don't have the agreement in hand yet, but for our Phase 2 application, it looks like we may be getting between $4 and $6 million in addition to deliver storm drain resiliency projects, and that's really key for our community. We're also looking to formalize a facilities strategy for town operations. We have a facilities committee, we've been meeting, and we have some action items, and I anticipate an update to the council likely in August on that effort as well. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions the council might have for Public Works, Engineering, Fleet, and Maintenance.
You know, I want to just when you talked about the motor pool and there's 100+ vehicles they maintain, what a lot of people don't realize is they also maintain all of the generators, backup generators that operate all of the brick, all of our facilities. There's a whole lot of work, so I know that adding that part-time person, you know, we have 2 highly skilled mechanics one anymore that gets probably burdened with all the paperwork that goes with managing a department. But a lot of times they'll run into a situation where they have to go for parts, and then there's nobody working on the vehicles. And that's what that new position is going to do for us, much like what Amy did in finance, where we just need a data entry person. I don't need an accountant, doing data entry, So that was I think that's a smart addition.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you so much.
Got the clicker? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council. So I'd like to present to you about community development. And just a reminder from years previous, community development is funded through two major funding sources. One is the general plan, and then the other is the enterprise fund, and that's the permit revenue that comes in. So out of CDD's budget, about 27% of that is general fund, which equates to about 6% of the total general fund budget. And so that's paying for staffing in code enforcement in its entirety, a portion of planning, a portion of fire prevention, as well as abatement costs. That's in that budget as well. The rest of the department's budget is coming from the permit fees, the enterprise fund. That's paying for building and wastewater activities in their entirety, a portion of planning, a portion of fire prevention. And so when I get into our goals, I'm sure it goes without saying, our daily activity is processing hundreds of building and septic permits. So what we're covering are some of those extra projects that we're looking at embarking on for those two funding sources in this next year, above and beyond just our normal business. So for the general fund side of the house, again, code enforcement, planning, and solid waste is in there as well. We'll be issuing that contract for the general plan update, right? Those bids close tomorrow, so we'll be back in front of the council in August to award, so that we'll start off on that. We're still working with PRPD on a grant they have. We're just a partner with them about the wildfire buffers, so we're looking to get another community meeting scheduled in July, just so we can keep the public updated about where we're at, where we're going, get feedback about, is there anything that we haven't thought about or other ideas? So we're looking in July. And then also our defensible space, right? So we did really good last year. We're hoping for that same compliance rate again this year. But the reality is, with all of these properties changing hands, there's just a lot of education that's still having to happen. You'd think everybody knows what the goal is, but you're constantly getting new landowners. So we're trying to figure out ways to get our prevention staff more embedded in the community, whether that's with service groups, the Firewise community groups, just so that there's just a better understanding at a ground level of what's being asked for defensible space. So we're just trying to get more integrated with the public this year. And then also, we are looking to be able to launch organics collection this year. We've been out of compliance with state law for a few years, so we've been under a corrective action plan with the state. The trucks that NRWS had ordered to collect organics finally arrived after over 2 years. So they're getting badged, and we're putting all the processes in place to get our permitting okay, to be able to sort and move. So the goal is in the fall of 2025 to actually get that part of Senate Bill 1383 launched. There's still some other things that we have to get compliance on, but that's the biggest lift. So we expect to see that moving forward. And then for the enterprise fund, so really building and wastewater. This is the last year of the current building code. So we start a new code cycle in January, so we will be working to do a series of stakeholder meetings toward, latter half of the year once the codes are released and we get a good grasp on what's changing to help educate the building public about what the changes are going to be for your building plan starting January 1st, right? So every 3 years, these update. Also, we are actually in the transition phase right now of going to a new software. We've been live for 2 weeks that is giving us the opportunity to start doing online submittals of building and wastewater. This is where we've been trying to get to. Some folks who are trying to submit are coming still long distances to apply, so this will help ease with that ability. Also, we have about 11,000 parcel files that are paper. We have been working slowly but surely on scanning all of those. They were in the back of this building at the time of the fire, and if we didn't have firemen and hose back there, it's very likely we would have lost those. And the idea of ever losing those files, that's a very scary proposition, so we've been working to get those scanned. We expect to be done with that this year. It makes it so much easier when people call to get the historic records, to know where stuff is, to be able to send it digitally. So that was a big deal for us. We focused just on getting the septic records first, and now this is all the rest of the records. And then also, we do expect to have another 190 affordable housing units coming through on this next fiscal year. These are 3 projects that were just recently notified that they got their tax credits. So it's a mobile home park that's just down the street from Dutch Brothers. That was 48 units. It's going to be converted to multifamily instead. It's the second half of Cypress, Cape Cod. Do you remember them? Cape Cod Mobile Home Park? Yeah, just below them. They're kind of hidden behind that like teal building. Yeah. So that was purchased by somebody else and it's going to be converted to multifamily instead. The second half of Cypress, the senior got their funding. And then 72 units across the street from the post office, they got their funding also. So we're going to see that 190 come through in this next year on top of the normal. Right now, we're at about 350 single-family homes a year, so this is on top of that for this coming year. And then historically, and I don't expect any different this year, we see a rush at the end of a code cycle, right? Because as long as your application's in, you're under these codes. Yeah, so December tends to be big when the code's about to change. So those are our major milestones, goals for the next year for our department, if there's any questions. Yes, sir?
Has your general fund budget been 7% all along, or is this an increase that's creeping up? What's it been in the past?
It is an increase. Once we moved, when we moved the abatement cost into our fund, that increased it, as well as fire prevention used to be part of fire's budget. But because they actually live in our house and we oversee them, we moved them to our budget.
Okay.
So it was just a reallocation of general funds that were sitting in somebody else's to ours, so it makes community development numbers
Yeah,
go
but that
up.
wasn't an increase in what's coming out of the general fund, it's just a
No, sir.
reallocation from one
Yes.
budget to another budget.
Yeah.
Has there been an increase in the amount of money going to you, your area from the general fund, or has it just been static?
I could imagine staffing, right? While the head count we've actually reduced, but it doesn't mean that the costs have reduced, right?
Okay.
But we've always been single digit, you know.
Yeah, but that covers 28% of your, or 27% of your
Yes, sir.
operating costs. That's
Yes.
more than a quarter of your operating costs come from the general fund.
Well, post-fire, at the time of the fire, we had 1 code enforcement officer.
Okay.
Now we have 2 and an admin.
Okay, fair enough.
Right.
And I think as Susan mentioned, the abatement cost increase in the current fiscal year is a significant increase over prior years.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Have we seen any?
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Really quick, so the new software that you guys are
Yes.
transitioning to, is that going to only take online submittals or
No.
still? Okay.
Oh, no, you
People
could bring
can
us
still-
paper if you'd love to, but others would like to do online
Sure,
from home.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Have we seen any, anything about the new code that's going to affect Paradise?
There will be a new, there's a new wildland interface code we know about.
More
They-
stringent?
We haven't received them yet.
You haven't seen it? Okay.
Yeah, no, we've ordered, the print's July 1st, so.
Okay, all right.
We'll get on top of it. We had to pre-order the codes just to make sure that we're in line to get them.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Sure.
Are those building codes?
Correct. Every 3 years, the California Building Standards Commission comes out with a new onslaught of codes.
New set,
Right.
yeah.
Back when in 82, it was a book, right? Now, there's volumes, and now they just added a new wildland interface code, which was integrated into several code
Right.
sections, the building.
Why make it a chapter when you can make it its own book?
So now it's gonna be its own volume. So I don't anticipate anything getting really much different, but of course, there will always be changes.
Yes, yes, good. Okay.
We had kind of gotten ahead of the requirements for WUI codes, right? We had
Correct.
exceeded it, so.
We partnered with IBHS.
Right,
and,
okay.
you know, we already integrated
Yep.
the 5'9" bus wall and the fencing and that type of thing. Yep.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Okay, good afternoon again, Mayor and Council. I'll go over the Housing Division budget information. As you may know, we had a little bit of a change with our Housing Division into this fiscal year. We had the retirement of our longtime housing manager, Kate Anderson, and with that changed the staffing model a little bit, and now reorganized this division under Recovery and Economic Development. So that is going very well, and so I'm happy to go over kind of what's going on in that division. So our first-time homebuyer program that we have had for many, many, many years and has taken a new form and new life after the fire remains very, very popular. So that is actually where we are seeing most of our applications coming in. And so that is very exciting. And luckily, we do have significant funding there to help people buy their homes. We also continue to progress with our reconstruction and rehab program. So this used to be just a rehab program. Now we primarily use it for reconstruction. That was the bulk of the funding that we received after the fire was into this program. We are now closing out that program because now being almost 7 years away from the fire, those funds are going away, but we continue to offer that program for those that meet the requirements, and we still do have additional funding from other sources to meet that need. We are working very hard to deliver many of those housing units that Susan just referred to through the CDBG DR housing allocation. So we have 47 affordable multifamily housing units that are already leased up, and we have 103 affordable multifamily housing rental units that will be available in the 25-26 fiscal year. And then an additional 142 that will start construction in this fiscal year. So we are really excited about that and what that means for our community that really is looking for that housing that really has not existed to this point. We also are excited to launch a new infill new construction program to help build even more homes. So we're leveraging some funds in a really creative way that we've never done before. So we're working with HCD in coming up with those guidelines. We're actually writing those guidelines alongside them to come up with this program. So this is something really innovative that will really help our community, and we think will help other communities as well. So we're looking forward to begin that program this year. And we just continue to utilize every funding source that's available and every waiver and possibility that is there to help rebuild housing. Like Amy mentioned, this is the cornerstone of our recovery, is to get more people here living in paradise. And this is one of the ways we can do that is by actually helping those that need those resources to build housing. So we continue to do that.
So that's exciting. You're working with HCD or somebody on an infill construction program where people could come and get money from us through that program to build a house?
Yes, exactly.
Because I think that's really, I would like to learn more about that. I think that's good because I don't know what we're doing to work with them to I know we ended up giving a couple $100,000 to Parks and Rec or somebody because we couldn't use it. And it's use it or lose it. And it's just kind of like, why aren't we educating HCD or whoever? Thank you for the money, but your rules are so bad, people can't qualify.
We work very closely with the staff at HCD and at HUD about our experience with the funding that we have received, whether it's disaster-related funding or just their regular funding. They're very stringent in their guidelines, and so we work really closely with them to tell them what works for us and what doesn't, and we try to make these programs so that we can use them, but if we can't, to try help other communities use them in the future.
Are you having any progress with that, do you think?
Oh, yes, we've had a great deal of progress, yes.
Because the other thing is, I think is a statement to these government agencies, is to say, gee, we qualify for the funds, thank you, but no thank you because I can't spend them,
Right.
Somebody's got to wake up.
I think I asked you this before, but does this give us the affordable housing we need to fill our quota? we've never been there before, so,
Susan, do
you
you
know,
want to?
you know what I mean by that?
Yes, I do. I'll have Susan address that.
There's always been
That's
a
a general
number that
plan
we've been
question.
trying to
Correct.
hit.
So last year was the first year that we actually met it.
Yeah.
We met all of our numbers.
Is that based on population right then?
So HCD allocates down to BCAG, who then gives it to us. So we have our highest grouping we have to meet is above moderate housing. That's thousands of units. And then there's some lesser. There's only a couple hundred of the really low and affordable that we have to meet, so this will help us get there. But there's also other smaller units, like sometimes the smaller manufactured can fall into that category too. So if this doesn't get us there, it'll get us pretty close to being there, the
I
190.
just remember before, well before the fire, we kept saying, we don't
Oh,
have
we would
our.
never hit those numbers.
Right, and we're building
Mm-hmm.
the Pewaukee Diddley out of these things right now, and you would think that we're either coming close or
Yes.
we're hitting that number, but I guess we just don't have that number.
Last year we did, this year it's over an 8-year span, right? So there's over 7,000 housing units we're supposed to just accommodate. It doesn't mean they all get built, but we have to be able to accommodate that many. And we can, we have that many lots, available to do that. So we're just showing that where the housing we are building, where does that slot in? And it's great if we can close out a category.
It's not my goal in life to do that. I mean, we want to do the best we can,
Oh,
but,
gosh, yes.
it's not like I feel as I have to, but I just know I was getting tired of hearing that constantly.
Do-
Yes.
Susan, does an ADU count as that?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
cool.
mean, it can, yes.
Cool.
There's a calculator, so it's based
Yeah,
on like the
that's a
size and square
good-
footage. Yeah, so ADUs are a good one to slot in the lower spots.
A lot of those housing starts.
Yes.
Are ADUs and things. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
I recall it being mentioned in one of the COC meetings that they weren't able to give like an accurate yes or no had we met ours because our population is kind of a moving target. It's just kind of constantly.
So the numbers that Greg is referring to, they're part of our housing element.
Right.
Right, so it's an 8-year period.
In the
where-
general plan, or?
Yes, the housing element of the general plan, so it has a number, and we have to report hard numbers every year. So we're given very specific numbers for different income categories. We report back every year to them. So those are real numbers. They do not change in that 8-year period. So we know if we've met them or not. Mhm.
Thank you.
Back to the exciting part of the presentation. Okay, so we talk about general fund a lot. We've talked about all the really cool projects, and you're like, wow, that's great. What does that look like dollar-wise, the cha-ching that goes behind the budget? So 2030, which Susan just talked about, we're looking at $3.5 million. Animal control, $594,000. Transportation, these are all fund numbers.
I don't know what you're talking about here. What does that mean? The 2030 is a code?
Yeah, that's a
Okay,
fund
I'm
number.
sorry.
So you can actually correlate that number with the budget
I thought that was a year or
document.
something.
The copious pages of document for your budget.
7628
It's those
gets one bid a
4
year.
codes are the different funds. So there's a transportation fund, 150. Gas tax, we're trending at 2.9 million. ATP, or Active Transportation Program, we're looking at 3.2 million. General plan update, we're looking at spending 600,000 out of that one. Again, that's Fund 7628. Other projects, we have recovery and transportation, so we still have campfire projects, which is federal funding as well at 14.1 million. LT cap, which is 770, FEMA 10.87, federal aid highway 13.8. So these are a lot of the projects that Jess is overseeing. And when you're looking at what Jess and Mark and all their team is doing, if they are very creative in making sure that we are not paying for anything. They are looking for every avenue. So a lot of these are multi-funded, which means 75% here, 10% here, 15% here. And so that's why you're seeing so many different large amounts in different places, because they're doing their best to make sure that The town itself doesn't have to pay for these crazy, huge projects. And when Mark was saying, oh, we're doing X amount of miles, we're talking just for roads, $40 million in a year. That's pretty amazing. Tracking it on our side is very cumbersome at times, but it's amazing the things that these departments are doing. Housing, we're looking at 1.7 for their home loans, and then the Cal Home is 604,000, but Cal Home, in the 2040, we're looking at $4.6 million. And these are directly going out to the citizens and the builders. So engineering, we're looking at 20 million when they were talking about the DR CDBG. And we have worked a lot with these different programs in getting advanced funding, in the reporting requirements. These are audited every year. We have multiple audits that are going on with these. And when you look at all the different programs, these are all the project numbers. These are not fund numbers. These are project numbers that are going into it. And this is just with engineering. So you have your on-system roads, Neal Road, Hazard Fuels, off-system road, Pence Pathway Skyway, Oliver Curve, Paradise Sewer Project, Skyway Link, Upper Skyway, Skyway Pence, Pence Road widening, Road 1 and 2, evac route sign, private road ID safe, and storm drain resiliency. So this is one fund, just Mark's people moving all of these different projects. Then we have housing and community development. You have your multifamily homes, your CHIP homes, your Clark Road, Cypress, Senior, Cypress Family, Eagle Point, Kathy Court, Northwind, early warning system, and workforce development. Workforce development is minimal this year. It has the opportunity to grow tremendously because it's an $18 million allocation. But as we've seen, things take a little bit of time to get the ball rolling. And so it could have an augmentation later. Based off what Mark is saying today, it's opening up the possibilities of having large augmentations for these projects as we progress through the year. And as I said before, your budget is only as good as the second you put the data in, because next week they're going to find more projects. Okay, personnel. So this is the schematic of how the tree falls. You guys are at the very top, and we are at the will of the council. So you see our town attorney, and then all the different commissions, town manager, and then all the people that fall under the town manager and yourselves. So 9 report to the town manager. If we look at personnel history, and we kind of touched on this earlier, but you can see the numbers as they trend through the years. So we're looking at a 100.4 FTE with 1.5 consultants, which are predominantly in housing. And I think there's one at the Brick, a half, somewhere in there. So the last part is the successor agency. So as you know, we defaulted. There's 2 different bonds. The way that it works is we have to pay the first bond first. The second bond cannot be paid until the first bond is paid in full. There are certain things that are allowed to be paid with the funds, but not very many, mostly just the bond. And so as we progress through the year, we've had exciting news. We've been actually getting revenue. We got approximately $200,000 to start making payments. So we send that to the trustee. They allocate it to the principal and the interest, and they are paying down the first bond. So you'll see that in the budget as well. It's not huge, but it's definitely trending upwards, and so people are getting paid who put the money in for those bonds. So it's positive. Any questions about that? No? Next step. If there's any changes, we will be making those changes in the next couple days, being that there's a need for it. And then you will see the approval for the budget on July 8th. We will also have all the different items that weren't included in this that are dependent on if there's any changes. So the resolutions, all of those different items. Questions? About an hour.
So, timing is very difficult because we got so much going on. I mean, there's so much work happening, so much recovery going on, all that. You made a statement that in '29 is when we actually need to change our course from recovery to, what was it?
Right, the
Transition.
transition timeframe, yes. So
Whatever.
that was based off the projections number that they gave us.
Okay. And that's good. At some time, you know, at some time, we got to start tightening the belt on some of this stuff. And like I said, now's not that time. We've got too much work to do, too much stuff to accomplish. Is my time up?
3 minutes.
I thought maybe.
3 minutes, Greg, you're done.
Yeah.
Keep going.
But I do want us going forward to start, you know, looking at that as we need to start, at least start developing the mindset of tightening the belt and getting that going. I don't want to all of a sudden be in trouble down the road. We'll probably not be there. This council will probably not be here when that time comes, possibly. Well, that's true. That's true. Maybe somewhere. But I don't want to see it happen like we had to deal with it before is whammo. It's not a thought, it's absolute, either you do it or you go bankrupt. And so this is not a question. This is just, and we're not there yet. But going forward, we need to start at least getting our mindset going that direction eventually. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
That was actually kind of to my point I wanted to make also is that, you know, I appreciate that we have that on our horizon as a marker that we need to kind of start aiming for that as where we start to bring our budget in line with our revenue. You know, and every time we see all this information, it's kind of like a fire hose of all this data. And so I think it would be helpful to kind of get our bearings as we approach that, to have a little bit more detailed information along the way. So not just like at these crossroads of when the budget is due in 2 weeks, we have to approve it. So something I've been interested to see is like a running staff report so that we can just kind of keep a pulse on it. And, you know, then you develop a real-time understanding of how those trends associate with projects and expenditures and things like that. And so I don't know if that's something that we can look at as having a more regular view of an ongoing staff report.
Are you looking for something that's general fund only, or are you looking for all the funds? Because a lot of those projects are not general fund.
Right.
They're housed in all of these other funds. So it's,
right.
We can.
I'm looking at general fund because that's where we're using the pro fund to augment it, and that's where we're running into problems when the pro fund is exhausted. All those others, my understanding, they're grant funding and things from other organizations, other areas.
Well, and I ask that because you're speaking of projects, and then you're talking about the general fund and pro fund, so those are two different things, and we can accommodate all of it. I'm just looking for how much fire hose you want, basically, because it's still going to be a lot of data and understanding. So I think there may be two parts. You know, at the initial part, having time to review it, because that's going to take a lot of time for understanding, and then there's also how much data do you want?
And you were saying at one point during the presentation that while some of these ongoing projects are ultimately funded by grants and such, they do kind of move through the general fund and then they're repaid essentially by grants and stuff like that, right?
So no. So we try to keep all those expenditures in these other funds. So we budgeted, so some of engineering and economic development is budgeted the wages in general fund, because if something were to happen, we still are responsible to pay for it. And then as the expenses come to light. We direct bill it over there, so there might be a cost savings. But these big projects, absolutely, I do not want them anywhere near general fund. I don't want transfers. I want them to go directly into the place because it makes it murky. And so
Okay.
I want it as clean and precise as possible.
So they're accounted for in the general budget, but they're paid for out of the grants
The
or whatever.
just the wages.
Okay.
And there are only, a lot of those positions are a percentage of the whole FTE.
Okay.
Because it'll be sprinkled between gas tax, general fund, and, whatever other funds are, they're doing
Like a
work
whole
in.
patchwork of
Correct.
sources of funding, sure. Okay.
And it's important to acknowledge that our management of our fund balance, because all of that cash flowing of all those big projects, it's our overall big fund balance that's cash flowing that. And that's why Amy has to work so hard with our investment advisors to every month determine what we're going to hang on to, what we're going to sell, what we can reinvest to try to maximize the return on that fund balance.
For example, we anticipate just for road rehab, $12 million being dispersed over 3 months. So making sure that the cash flow is in place is literally a dance of how to keep as much in the investment and making interest as possible. And if you talk to anybody, I'm walking around going, cash flow, let's go. How much are you going to spend? Because I want to keep it as tight as possible in order to get the interest. And we've been doing, with the market the way it is, we've been doing pretty well with our cash flow as well as the interest. And it's really my priority to make us as much money because, as you say, you don't want to be in the seat when it goes to the cliff. I don't want to be the finance director that was sitting in the seat at the cliff either.
No, you don't, yeah.
So-
I think to keep in mind, to your comment about getting, interim information, is that the way our revenue is received, we get the bulk of our property tax only twice a year. So really, if we were to do a mid-year review on the budget, and Amy can produce that for you, that would give us a good mid-year check on both revenue and expenses. We can do expenses quarterly, but it doesn't tell you a whole lot because you don't know what the revenue is that's coming in against that. It just tells you that we're spending like we said we would. But if we do it mid-year, that gives us a chance to see really how is the property tax coming in, how's our sales tax coming in, is it trending where we want it to? So if that gets you closer to where you want to be, that would be my recommendation as we plan to do a thorough mid-year review this year to help you see that.
Yeah, and
Okay, let me chew on it and maybe we could meet separately and maybe I could see what that would look like because maybe that is exactly what
Sure.
would satisfy my
And
curiosity.
what you'll see is if you're looking at the percentages, there will be things that come up for general fund even, where it's like, oh my gosh, you just used like 40% and it's July. Because we have those upfront costs that we have to pay, and then it's, this little lull, and then it's May, and it's zoom, So there's definitely ebbs and flows, and you just have to be prepared for what that could look like. But as you're thinking, I'm also spinning how can I present that information so it's not overwhelming? Because even when I run the reports, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a lot to digest. And then, making it so that you actually know what you're looking at. That's the interesting part.
Yeah, digestible is good. But I am familiar with large budgets, so it is not totally Latin.
I'm just thinking if there's a report that's 200 pages.
Like our agenda packets.
Yeah, exactly. I look
So-
forward to it.
Okay, so I just want to understand, numbers are my game, So you told me that services, professional and contract services general is like consultants and things like that.
Anything that we contract for,
Con- yeah,
roll up into that, yes.
So I'm looking at the town manager's budget. And that item, whatever it is, 10, 10, 20, 4,200, whatever, that line item, right? So on 2023, the actual amount was $6,600. And then in the 25 amended budget, that grew to $14,650. And the year-to-date actual amount for 2025 was $7,044. and the department requested, and which I'm assuming that means that's what's going to be in the budget that we'll look at, is again $14,650. Why? What is that?
I can pull the transaction list and I can give you more detailed.
Okay. I'll come
Offhand,
and see you.
I don't know
I'll come and see you.
offhand, but
Yeah,
I'm
I'll get with you
assuming.
later, and I'm just curious about that. I mean, and I will probably find that same question in some other departments. I just, because, and I'll tell you why I'm asking that. There are some things happened in the past year to where when I questioned the staff at the department head, it's like, where'd you get the money for that?
Mhm.
And the response was, it was in my budget.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of like, if you're only spending $7,000 for whatever, I mean, what's the need? I mean, I'm not trying to micromanage a town, but, I mean, why am I going to budget $14,000 if historically you've only spent $7,000? And when it comes to consulting and those things, like a point that you made, like where Mark was talking about, they're always looking for other funding and money. Okay, I have a staff now that's this big that has legacy costs when we get to that point in time where the revenues, the pro fund's gone. Okay, a lot of these grants that we get, that's great, whether we hire a consultant to manage it, or a contractor to manage it, or an employee to manage it, the consultant, there's no legacy cost. I don't have a $200,000 unfunded liability payment every whatever, I mean, those are the kinds of considerations for the long term that we're going to have to start looking at. It's great to have, I mean, we have a great staff, they do wonderful work, and that's the other thing, so, I mean, that's why I'm asking those kinds of questions, just because I'd like to reduce the number of consultants. I mean, if I got a staff that can do all this work, why the hell do I have all these consultants? Why am I spending $100,000, $200,000? Now, some we have to have. I totally understand that. I'm not anti-consultant, but,
So
I'll come and see you.
moving forward, how would you like me to present that so that you don't have those types of questions?
Well, I think it's just going to be, if we look at when we're presented with this data, I mean, if we have questions, we should be able, I mean, I'll email you or you can text. It's just a question. I mean, it may be, if I know what that's for, okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
If I don't know what that's for, I don't understand how we spent $7,000 this year, but we need $14,500 next year. Is something changing?
And I think that list might help too.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
So that list would be for existing contractors? Because some of the things that are listed in your budget, like Colette was talking about, haven't been implemented yet. They haven't come to you. So we don't have that contract in place. But when you're building the budget, you're anticipating what is coming. And so those are two separate things. It's actual things happening or anticipated things happening. You're asking for anticipated. I think you're asking for actual. Is that correct?
I'd like to see, now I'm talking consultants here. I'd like to see both. I mean, what we currently have and what we're anticipating.
Sure. I'm just trying to get a feel for what it is we're looking for so I could provide it. Okay.
Both is important because then we at least have a sense of what it's about.
Sure.
Otherwise, we don't. And then when suddenly you see something going on, you go, what's that all about? Oh, well, it was in my budget. Oh. Okay.
Amy does have the backup for each item in that budget, so she has that information.
It's
Yeah.
not a problem to provide it. I'm not worried about it. It's just making sure I get the information because the list of current contractors will take some time. The other portion, because we did zero-based budgeting, it'll just be a printout. So that'll be easy. Yours will be a little harder, but we gladly will accommodate.
But I think that's really important. Like if we've got things put into this budget that we don't know anything about because they don't exist yet, it's just the staff has decided, y'all have met and said, hey, well, we want to have this to do this, and we don't even know that,
Sure.
you know?
We
I
can
mean,
accommodate.
and we're going to approve this on July 8th, and then it's a done deal. You know, so it'd be nice to know what those things are, so that if we do, because I know, at least I am, I only speak for myself, I'm starting to look at If I've got a good staff, if I trust the staff and trust the report they're giving me, then I don't know that I need some outsider to come in and tell me something that, yeah, that's a good idea, or no, that's not a good idea. You know, it's kind of like, there are some things, yes, you need that, but I just don't, you know, I'm starting to really hone in on, we spent a lot of money on those people. We're way down the road from January 2019.
Any other questions for Amy? Well, with that, thank you, Amy, and meeting.